need it to make sure it's recording. Okay, so since we have this packed agenda,
Okay, well then, I mean, but because of just and then I'm gonna probably run out of it. But oh, I don't know. He's in the back. In the back.
Well, thank you so much. I think it's a big compliment.
This will be our entry. We're not going to.
Yes.
So,
I heard the mic because of the
let me see.
okay.
So I know you're slow.
Okay.
And then, so then you stand here. We're both recording this on Zoom on this little camera. So you will actually, you will be standing here.
Okay.
Talking into here. So you'll be looking back. Your
Okay.
slides will be on back of you.
Okay.
But I'm going to reduce this so nobody sees it.
Is there a way that, now how are the online slides going to be?
Okay, let me make sure the Zoom is still there. Yeah. So all you have to do is, this is a little wonky, so be careful with this, but you just hit. Why isn't it? Page down.
That's the problem when you do a PDF. That's what I did. It was just too big as a.
Yeah, I was hoping to page over like this, but I think you're just going to have to go down like this. Is that okay? It's also touch screen, so you can go up and down this way.
Okay, that's great.
Okay, but you will be being recorded right here.
Okay, I'll stay in one spot. That's hard for me, you know.
I know. This is why I put this right here.
I'll be inclined to stay right here.
Exactly.
I'll open it right.
Good. Okay. I'll get this. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association meeting. I hope you all have had a wonderful summer. I am your current president, Lou Raiders, and we also have a lot of people on Zoom tonight. We have a really packed agenda, so we'll get going right away with a couple of quick announcements. First of all, I wanted to acknowledge the passing of our neighbor and great philanthropist, Don Sturm. Don lived in the neighborhood. He ran A&B Bank. He's given so much to our community. He lived at the residence right on 2nd and Fillmore. So I know that we all will keep his family in our hearts and remember how much that he has done for our community over the years. Also, I would like to make sure everyone knows that our hardworking team on Sip and Savor has been doing a great job. Tickets go on sale on Monday. They always sell out very quickly. It should be a great event this year. Again, it'll be outside. at Room and Board, and the team has done a terrific job of getting a lot of contributions. This is our give back event, and we're so proud of how much this community gives back, and the proceeds always go to Urban Peak and sometimes some others. So it's really a good event, and it helps us do the good works. Also, the mayor will be here on 9/3 at 5:30 here at Bromwell to bring out into the neighborhood his current vision and to talk about affordable housing. So that is open to everybody. That is September 3rd at 5:30. Our annual meeting is going to be October 15th. That is the meeting where we always remind people about the clubs if you want to sign up, and Dick Cohen, who's a board member who's here tonight, always takes care of that for us. It's also when we renew the positions that are open for board. And this year we will be welcoming our new president going forward, Linda Barker, who is, where is Linda? She go. There she is right there. So she's going to be stepping up to the helm, and but that will happen when we transition on October 15th. So put that on your calendars. Another quick announcement, Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association is a member of what's called INC. INC is the organization of registered neighborhood organizations in the city. As a member, we participate with Inc. And in September, Cherry Creek North will be hosting at the church up on 6th Avenue. There was a little article about the church in the newsletter. Who saw that? Y'all see that? 100 years old, that church. They hold a lot of wonderful events there that are not part of the church, but just part of their philanthropy and giving to the community. Many of you have gone there for the pottery sale, etc. So that will be on the 14th. And we as a neighborhood will be hosting that. And it will be on the ballot initiatives that are coming. And Councilwoman Sawyer will be there. And you will have an opportunity to hear pro and con. We're doing this in partnership really with Denver Decides and the League of Women Voters. So that should be really good. It will be, I think, starting at 9 o'clock, but if you watch for announcements and look at our website, you'll have an opportunity to register for that and come as well. It's open to the public. I would like to welcome our Councilwoman Sawyer, and if she could just say a few words, say hello, and everyone welcome her here. And Owen Brigner, that you all know because he always comes and helps us set up and helps us do everything really. So we thank them for being here. Councilwoman.
Thank you. Okay, I've got to go over here. Well, thank you so much. I know we have a packed agenda tonight. So I will just say it's great to see you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging in your neighborhood. Please reach out to our office with any questions or if there's anything we can do to help support you. We're a customer service agency first and foremost. Owen is probably the one that will answer the phone when you call or answer your emails. So please get to know him, introduce yourselves. If you've got questions, he'll be here the whole meeting. I'm going to run out in a minute, but he'll be here to at the end to answer questions and things like that. So it's great to see you all. And thanks so much for having me. Thanks, Lou.
Thank you for being here. We know it. You have a lot on your plate. So since she's going to leave early, I'm going to push one thing up on the agenda, and that is the conversation that we've been having for, I don't know, 20 years, maybe-ish, on the parking problem and the potential for redoing the parking permit. I was kidding. It's only been probably a year and a half or so that we've been working on this. And yeah, it just feels like that long. So I will give you a quick update on that now because I want to take my hat off to Councilwoman and thank her profusely. Annette Woodward, I don't know, I haven't seen Annette here. She might be out at the front desk, but she and I have been part of the team from CCNNA that have been working with you all and putting out the information so that you could have your voices heard. And we had, how many? It was like 618 people signed on to our petition. And through Councilwoman Sawyer's office and with the help of Owen, the board walked around those flyers and put it on your door, and you responded. And we had so many people that Councilwoman Sawyer got a Zoom meeting with the new head of Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, Amy Ford. We talked about the concerns again. We expressed the primary concerns all the way down the list that we had in that opposition statement, which you can find on the website. And it appears that they're listening. We have a follow-up meeting on that on the 10th. So more to follow, but we've tried to propose some solutions. But I'm telling you, without the great work of Councilwoman Sawyer and her staff, we would not be having somebody stopping this and listening to us. So, you know, all politics is local. Thank you for participating. We continue to do what we can do to salvage what we can and to keep our parking system as robust as we can for the neighbors. So I wanted to pull that out of line. I'm going to bring up the rest of the updates after our keynote for today. So, but I just wanted to make sure she heard that and give everybody a chance to give her a round of applause and Owen for all the help. So with that, I am going to take us to our main topic for tonight, which is a very interesting topic. I am on a learning curve on this, and I have the greatest teacher in the world. Stuart Anderson is the Chief Executive Director of Transportation Solutions. Transportation Solutions is our area transit management association. And nobody probably knows what that is yet. By the end of this conversation, you will. And it's important now because we have transportation management as a part of our ordinance for all new developments. So this is something that Stuart has worked on for many years. I have now come on his board. And so I am trying to help as Councilwoman Sawyer is also on the board and several others that are on council. So we have changes coming to our area, and those changes mean traffic, transit management, and those issues. So understanding them is really important for people in our neighborhood to know that we now have another layer that developers have to work through when they propose new developments. So Stuart, I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. He is internationally recognized in the transit management world. He was just awarded the 2024 inductee of the Association of Commuter Traffic Hall of Fame. They had their national association meeting in Denver. I got to go one day and meet a lot of those people who live in this world that is quite involved. And these people are so passionate. Before this, Stuart has run several organizations, lived in several cities, and has been around the world. And he knows this stuff like nobody else. So please join me in welcoming Stuart, who is going to teach us all about TMAs. Stuart.
Thank you, Lynn. You are too wonderful. Your introductions are just great. Traffic, one of our favorite topics. Lou, if you could let me know on two things, time and whether I'm moving this too far away if people can't hear me.
Kind of need to hold it
right
there.
Okay.
Or even that way.
Like this.
But you're also being recorded on the Zoom.
Okay.
So for people at home, you kind of got double duty.
Okay. Well, just raise your hand if something isn't working right. But it's a pleasure to be here this evening to talk about traffic. Traffic is certainly something we don't enjoy. We don't like sitting in traffic, and our traffic is growing. So let me tell you a little bit about my organization and what we are trying to do, and give you a broader perspective, perhaps, on transportation. This is more of a dialogue. This isn't a lecture, so please stop me if you have a question. If I dare use an acronym that doesn't make any sense to you, stop me and I will tell you what it is. So let me see if I can do this right. Okay, I'm going to move it up with my finger. There we go. Oh, goodness. So Transportation Solutions is a nonprofit organization that was created in 1997. In 1994, Colorado recognized that Denver was becoming one of the most polluted cities in the world, that we were not doing what we needed to do to clean our air. And in 1994, the EPA threatened the Denver region with what I might call draconian style trip reduction rules like they are in California and other places. But through the course of the discussions, local leaders felt that it wasn't necessary. And I'm going to give a few opinions here and there. Colorado has spent 20 years pointing at electric vehicles and saying, we are solving our air quality problem. The director of our air quality district told me 10 years ago, in 5 years, we're going to have this solved. Am I not?
Excuse me. I apologize. Go ahead and back up and keep talking.
Okay.
I think
Are you getting my chin?
No, well, it's just not showing up on the Zoom. Sorry, everybody. Technical work here. Go ahead and you can talk on this. I'm just going to share the screen. Okay.
There, I can watch.
There.
Okay. Very good. Well, our air quality problem hasn't gone away. It's gotten a lot worse. You probably don't know, but we are more polluted than Houston, Texas. We are rivaling some Southern California communities with our really bad air. Our elected officials said no new rules, but they wanted a collection of voluntary initiatives. And one of those initiatives was to create a collection of nonprofits that are called transportation management organizations. There we go. Okay, thank you. And this program is one of 9 along the Front Range. We are local nonprofits, and we're funded mostly through the Denver Regional Council of Governments with federal funds, as well as some local stakeholders. Our program in particular, our largest contributor is the University of Denver. They've always been an anchor for our organization, but the Cherry Creek Shopping Center, the Cherry Creek North, BID, and other organizations have participated for many, many years in our program. But this up. I'm not doing very well tonight. Sorry about that. Oh, goodness. Ultimately, our goal is to reduce pollution. We reduce about 2 million vehicle miles traveled each year through our various programs. But mostly what we do is we promote a multimodal environment where people can use different ways of getting around. Stop. Let me do the arrows. This is really getting difficult. I'm sorry for this. Okay. Now, there we go. One of the things that is prominent with our organization is we do Bike to Work Week every year. This year we had over 20,000 people register to ride their bike to work and to try that out for a particular day. We work with developers throughout Southeast Denver in trying to design buildings that can accommodate pedestrians, bicyclists, transit users, and other types of transportation modes. Our city is going through a transition where we're seeing a densification of our urban core in Denver, and we're seeing changes in the travel patterns that are here. Our goal is really to educate and promote these various alternatives. And I'm going to try the arrow again. So let me tell you about Cherry Creek, because I'm sure you're quite concerned about the traffic here. The city, for the first time, developed a model where they could look at trips that people make in their cars from their origin to their destination. We couldn't do that before. Only 3 years ago, if you asked what was the traffic situation on First, they could tell you with a cordon how many cars drive across a particular intersection. And we do have a lot of cars. But the city couldn't tell you where those cars were necessarily coming from. What we know today is 28% of the traffic that is out there on the streets in Cherry Creek are you folks, people who live here in this community, 28%. We also have some folks that come from nearby neighborhoods. We have a lot of employees in Glendale. We have a lot of employees in Capitol Hill. But the vast majority of people on First Avenue each day live down Leetsdale and Parker Road. And they drive through this area towards downtown. And if you can see in the chart, this is from Denver Moves Cherry Creek. It shows where the origin of our traffic is. And I think that this is important when we talk about trying to solve our traffic situation. In other words, we could probably get all of you to ride the bus and we would still have traffic here. And the reason is not only do we have high volume, but there is a very high amount of latent demand. This is the first choice for people on Leetsdale to get to downtown. If you want to know probably the biggest improvement that benefited you guys was the double turn lane on 8th Avenue off Colorado. And it gave people an option that could make it quicker. So that up there was the best benefit for you guys down here. Now, if we were able to make all of our intersections work really well, the cars would keep coming and they would come faster and they would continue to flow through the area. Country Club, I'll pick on Country Club. I love the folks over there. But they always say, we can't have more traffic on First Avenue. We need to fix the traffic in Cherry Creek. Well, I told them if you fix the traffic in Cherry Creek, you will have more cars first, and they'll pile up more along there. So this dynamic of where people are coming from and where people are going is important to understand what's causing our traffic. Cherry Creek, for better or worse, is designed as a suburban area. Our main street, First Avenue, is designed as a parkway. Well, as a transportation planner, parkways are for getting cars quickly through an area. What do you need as a main street? Do you want to have a pass-through going through your main street, or do you want to have streets that let people walk, people bike, to have benches, to have things that are amenities for your community? I have argued for the last 20 years that we need to change First Avenue. We need to make that road appealing to folks. We can't keep any retail there because no one wants to shop there. It's like shopping on the side of a freeway. And I know we all have opinions and you may not agree with me, but that's kind of my perception of what we have there. So we need to better design our roads that we have. Let's try this again. One of the strategies that my organization focuses on is called transportation demand management. Now, you know, supply for transportation is building roads, but demand for transportation are the people who use the transportation infrastructure. And when we've looked at addressing traffic issues, we have to think about getting the most people through an area. Now, there is a common perception that no one in Cherry Creek wants to ride the bus. No one wants to carpool in this area, and no one wants to bike. Well, we had an experiment that got national recognition and won a national award. And it's the Clayton Lane project, when Randy Nichols first built that. If you remember back then, he had zoning for 2 stories and he was going to go for 12, and everybody screamed about traffic. So you better do something really, really good. So what Randy did is he worked with us and he gave us a 10 cent per square foot assessment on his property that created $34,000 that was then used to purchase transit passes for employees that work there, and also to do active promotion and other types of things that would benefit the community. We installed this valet parking. Anybody remember the bike rack? You probably don't. It's been a long time ago, but it was valet parking for cyclists. And we had 115 users, daily users. Most of them worked for Janice Henderson. Most of them were at an income level of $160,000 a year. And this is going back a little bit. And we had 120 professionals riding bikes, and they loved it. When it went away, they had less than 5 cyclists going to Janice. People with $2,000, $3,000 bikes are not inclined to park it in a dark corner in a garage or on a pole along the street. But we also went and used this money to give everybody at JW Marriott a transit pass in their very first year. So the day they came to work, they were handed a transit pass that we paid for them. And when they received their transit pass, and we came back a year later, and it was actually it was Marriott that did the measuring with their employees, 94% of their employees used the bus or another alternative. 6% of their employees drove a car. Now, 2/3 of the workers in Cherry Creek are in the hospitality, service, and retail industries. The majority of our employees are in the lower income range. Parking is expensive. Owning a car is expensive. People want good alternatives. This program that we had at Clayton Lane proved that with the right influence and the right subsidies, people will choose different alternatives. Let me continue along here. When the city started to realize that these programs, like the one at Clayton Lane, was working really well, the city decided that they would create an ordinance that would require all developers of a certain size to develop what we call these TDM programs, Transportation Demand Management Programs. And this has been in place for about 3 years. Most of the developers that have been talking with you about their developments have to comply with that new requirement. Now, the new requirement says that you're going to have to reduce a certain number of cars based on location of your facility and type of facility. So they have to look at how they have to reduce it, and then the city provides a menu of options they can provide. So for example, the top strategy would be providing transit passes to all employees. That would get you 10 points. So if you're a developer and the city said you need to reduce 10% of your trips, that translates into points, find 10 points on this menu to reduce your number of trips. And this has worked fairly effectively with most of our recent development in encouraging different types of transportation alternatives. I'm not going to bore you with the TDM ordinance, but I really think as a community, and I'm kind of part of your community. I live at Cheeseman Park, have been there for 27 years, so I know this area very well. If you're talking to developers, you need to understand there's a rule now. There's a rule that requires developers to do things to reduce traffic and congestion. Yes. It's both residential and commercial. So in our area, on any given day, we see about 3/4 of the commuters driving cars. we do annual surveys of the employers in Cherry Creek. So I have years of data that I can look at. And what I can tell, because I went back and I looked at our data and I wanted to find how many workers in Cherry Creek are unhappy with driving a car to work. And consistently, it's been around a quarter. It was 24% of the people who work here do not want to drive their car here, but we don't have the alternatives that they need. So we're an area that's been designed as a suburb, and we're urbanizing for better or for worse. If we expect all new development to focus on the car, well, we're built out already. What we need to do is to get people out of their cars and using different alternatives. When we went through the Denver Moves Cherry Creek study, what this area will get eventually is great transit, but we're not going to see anything for 10 years. And that's very frustrating. We're going to have 3 bus rapid transit lines. Now, these are like light rail cars with rubber tires traveling on dedicated roadway space. We're going to have one that comes from downtown and follows all the way through Cherry Creek along First and down the Leetsdale corridor. It essentially is going to replace the 83 bus that goes down that direction. There will also be one on Alameda, but when it gets to University coming eastbound, it'll go north to First and then turn and then go around the shopping center and back onto Alameda and continue over to Aurora. So there's two bus rapid transit lines that will go through the core of Cherry Creek. And the other one is Colorado Boulevard. And Colorado Boulevard is the one that you might see in about 10 years. They're already studying it. They're already studying the Alameda corridor. Colfax is going to get bus rapid transit. How many of you have actually seen a real bus rapid transit where you have to look down and see if there's rubber tires or metal tires? Some cities have them now. Minneapolis has done a great job in building an array of low-cost bus rapid transit. We'll see Colfax soon. Colfax should go under construction. I don't know, do you have a better update? So it's coming. And what bus rapid transit will be like is these big accordion buses will actually come by about every 5 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes, and they will have people do the ticketing on the platform, just like you would with light rail. You get into the bus through a multitude of doors, so you don't have to go through the front door anymore. This gets the bus through the area more quickly. It also makes it more desirable for people who are used to driving a car. You're going to find that in going downtown, when you get your bus rapid transit, the alternative of driving to downtown or just stepping onto that BRT and being downtown is going to be appealing to a lot of people. So here's the problem. Cherry Creek is in a bad spot. We're somewhere between a community that depends on cars, and we have a density where it won't work, but we can't get the right transit to address our need that we have today. So when the city went into Denver Moves Cherry Creek, one of their goals was to create the densities to support quality transit in this area. And that's why, if you wonder why the city is approving development on key corridors like First, Leetsdale, and others, it's largely to create the customer base for transit instead of having sprawl. Now, if you ever watched how Houston grew, it was just sprawl. It didn't go up for a long time. It went sprawling out. It's one of the largest cities area-wise because it sprawled. But we can sprawl too. We can sprawl all the way to the Kansas border. But is that going to be what we want? Is that what our community needs? So I'm probably not helping you much. I decided instead of talking about boring technical stuff, I'd give you some of the misconceptions that I hear the most from this area. Lower density automatically means you're going to reduce traffic. Absolutely not. No. You reduce one car on Cherry Creek and it's replaced with two cars coming up Bleetsdale. It always happens, and we can model that now. So where do we go? Do we create the density that the city wants? Or do we try to keep this community at a smaller size? We've already crossed the threshold. Our traffic is already bad. So we would have to decrease density in Cherry Creek in order to get our traffic to be reduced. And as soon as we reduce that traffic, all those cars, have you seen all those apartment buildings on Leesdale? Huge apartment buildings going in one after another after another. They're going to want to drive through your neighborhood. And I tell folks who don't like some of the buildings that are getting built, and I'm not pro density per se. I'm not trying to advocate for any developer. But the reality is that if we want to get people out of their cars, we're going to have to be able to have a good service. Removing the bottlenecks will lessen traffic congestion. No, it won't. It only works when you don't have latent demand. But latent demand means that all the people that are going up to 8th, if you could reduce traffic and these bottlenecks in Cherry Creek, they're not going to go to 8th. They're going to come back down here to 1st and then take that corridor to downtown. So you've got a long list of cars that you're going to have to get off the road before you're going to see that. Higher income individuals only want to drive alone. Survey after survey that we have done here, there's one word that everybody wants, it's called convenience. They just want convenience. It's not necessarily a car, it's just that cars in Denver are often the most convenient. But if you were going to New York, do you want to drive a car? No, you certainly wouldn't. I'm not suggesting our density is going in that direction, but there is a reality that people will start switching into alternative modes. There is a strong sense of entitlement of being able to park at your front door. That's why we have cars circling the block in the business district forever. I've seen cars when sitting outside, watching a car go around, 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 and then they find a spot. That's causing localized congestion. And the problem is the city. The city won't allow us any control over the parking meters. So the cheapest parking spaces are the best parking spaces on the street. That makes everybody want to circle and circle and circle. The commercial, the business district. So circling the block to get to where they want to go. So that's a big problem that we have. Did you know that Cherry Creek is one of the areas that has the most parking spaces per capita? We have between 30 to 40% of the parking spaces in the business district not being used every day. And yet we have people searching and searching and searching and searching for parking. Many have said bikes are a nuisance. I love to ride my bike. I didn't do it tonight. I'd be all sweaty. But I love to ride my bike through Cherry Creek. Yes, they can be a bit of a nuisance, but you know, on a good month like October, we found in our surveys that we can exceed the number of cyclists traveling to work over downtown. And downtown is so proud of all their bike lanes. 6% of the people in downtown will commute by bike. In October in Cherry Creek, we reached 8% of the people riding bikes. Now, they may be a nuisance, but if you put them all back into a car, that might even be a bigger nuisance. What we need to do is a better job of separating the buses and the scooters from the people. We want to be able to coexist in a safe manner. We want to access our bike facilities. We want to encourage people to bike to Cherry Creek. These are many ways that collectively are going to help us address some of the mobility issues in the area. Now, this question of, well, I'll create a better bus service, and I've heard this multiple times because I sit on RTD committees forever. And it's often said, we don't want a bus stop because it's going to bring thieves to our area. When the light rail was being built down along I-25, That was the T-Rex project from about 20 years ago. The Park Meadows, I was in the meeting where Park Meadows Mall said, we do not want that light rail anywhere near our mall. Well, we're like, it's on your side of the freeway. That's going to be a bit difficult. We do not want it. You're going to have to block off all access. So the only access you have is you have to go over the freeway and you're on the east side of I-25. And that was because of Park Meadows. 3 months, this is no joke. I sit on the committee. 3 months after it started operations, somebody from Park Meadows Mall came up and said, why don't we have an entrance on our side? Our employees are complaining. Why didn't people think about this? And I'm like, well, you said you didn't want it. I asked them recently, partly joking, I just said, how's the crime down in your area? And they said, well, it's car theft. Everybody's stealing cars around Park Meadows Mall, but they're not riding transit to do that. This is an opinion I have. I'm going to share it anyway because I feel strongly about it. You know, 99% of transit agencies around the country have appointed boards. Local government appoint transit boards. Transit funding is very spelled out. There's not much latitude. The federal government tells you how you have to spend it and everything. We in Denver, for whatever reason in the 80s, thought that we don't want an appointed board, we want an elected board. Isn't that more democratic? So we get people, average citizens, who understand nothing about how transit works, coming in and saying, when I was in Europe, in Copenhagen, they had this, this, and this. We need those things here in Denver. I'll say back to them, our buses don't run on time. You know, the number 3 bus that comes to this area is one of the most notorious buses for just not showing up. It's really sad. Our labor pool for the retail service and hospitality market used to be the federal corridor. RTD cut the 2 bus lines that connected people to Cherry Creek. And now we're at a 40% annual employee turnover rate in Cherry Creek because our transit serves more affluent neighborhoods that are not as inclined to work as a janitor in Cherry Creek. We've cut off our access to our labor pool. So these are some of the challenges that we have. Last time the RTD went out for an election, us practitioners found out that 3 of the seats had no candidate whatsoever. So everybody went out begging anybody, you know, my aunt, can you run for the RTD board? We don't want no one to be there. Well, we got a lot of weird characters at RTD. There's one right now, I'm going to say because she irritates me so much. She knows nothing about transit. She's brand new to the board. She thinks she knows how to solve this. She is pestering our state legislature so much about her ideas that it has made RTD just an embarrassing agency. And we continue to allow that to happen. So when this comes up again, because our governor is very unhappy with RTD, I'm very unhappy with RTD. The 24 bus coming by once an hour, that's ridiculous. To an activity center that's so large. And I talked to a merchant at the shopping center who said to me, you know, all of my African-American employees are quitting. I said, why? Because the 24 no longer goes to North Denver. It's once every hour. They're all quitting. So we're not doing a lot of good planning. I'm not solving anything for you right now, and I recognize that. I just hope that when you do get engaged with development, understand the dynamic of traffic, the need for density to make transit work, and the idea that we bring residents closer in to where their jobs are at. And that doesn't mean we have to have low-income housing all over Cherry Creek, but we do need to have better access to various areas where people do work. Cherry Creek is a cherished area. It has always been a cherished area, even back when the Arapahoes and the Cheyennes had this area. It was a very popular spot. And I think that we deserve something better. So before we reject all changes coming to Cherry Creek, think about whether or not getting a 2-story building versus a 6-story building is really worth it to support that huge housing development on Leetsdale that is going to pump cars up through your area. So with that said, I probably have ended it on a bad note.
We'll say we're going to open this up to some questions, but I'm going to ask you a quick question. Can you please tell us about the new bike storage facility at the mall over by the valet area that you're negotiating or finalizing?
Yes. I pester the mall all the time on bicycles, and it hasn't gone very well. We had a manager before that felt bikes needed to be as far away as possible. We did a survey of the shopping center and found a humongous number of employees wanting to bike. We used to have racks at the back. They were taken out, and we were given 5 poles. If you see them over by valet, those are the little poles, 5 for the bikes that are going to come to the shopping center. Well, that's kind of ridiculous. We have a new manager. We're in conversation with them. They have said they are going to put in a bike valet parking storage facility in the valet parking area. We're going to go after a grant to put bike racks at the back of the shopping center and to give people options to ride their bikes. Yes.
Let me bring this to you, sir.
How has the adoption of e-bikes changed the map, and how is it changing the policy?
Well, we have a lot of e-bikes out there now. And as you know, both the governor and our mayor want e-bikes. And they want to accelerate the adoption of electric powered vehicles. And so it's now being subsidized pretty heavily. And we're seeing a lot of people using their e-bikes. They aren't necessarily speeding. I wanted to find out if all these electric bikes are speeding. I don't really see it when I'm on the bike paths, but they are. They really aren't going at unsafe speeds. Now, scooters, completely different story. My kids ride their scooters, and I'm just scared to watch how they use them. But we're going to continue to promote e-bikes as an option, and we're creating what we call e-bike libraries around the Denver area. We're working on one in the Windsor community, Windsor Gardens, to get electric bikes available to those that live there. And we just recently did a presentation and a survey and found 80% of the folks want to use an e-bike. So it's increasing.
Thank you very much. Sounds like on the e-bike side, that's something that's positive. I wanted to ask you if you could give us like 5 things that you see as positive happening with the whole parking and traffic issue. And secondly, what can we do and what are you guys doing to be able to help kind of get around those misconceptions and help correct those misconceptions with the public? What can we do?
Right. It's a large, the issue is education and awareness. Actually, to get into air quality just briefly, Coloradans have a higher sense of environmentalism than other states. We're one of the highest for it, but we're also one of the lowest for taking action. And we have done a very poor job connecting people's attitudes about the environment and converting it into actions that help the environment. Even if it's something as small as a Saturday, you could ride your bike to the hardware store to pick up a few small items instead of driving your car. It's going to be all of us collectively that are going to make a difference. E-bikes are something that we're invested in here in Colorado. We hope we're going to get better transit. We put everything into one bucket, BRT. Everything's BRT. So it better work. Works in Minneapolis. It works very well in Minneapolis. We think it's going to work here as well. The problem is we don't have the money to build it in a timely manner. So between now and 10 years, we're going to still have pretty bad congestion. Yes. Oh.
Can you comment on the impact of the Cherry Creek Mall West, $1 billion project over 10 years?
Well, I'm not going to dive into the politics of it, but I have been working with them for 2 years. And they are required under the TDM ordinance to get 12 points. That's what they're required. Their current plan has 32 points. That means they're striving for a 32% reduction in drive alone commuting when compared to other facilities in Cherry Creek. Well, I didn't, let me, you're shaking your head. I should tell you what they're doing. They're putting a bi-directional bike path along First. They're going to make improvements for bikes along Clayton. They're going to be, they said that they would accept an e-bike library where you could borrow an electric bike. And they're looking at bike valet parking. They're looking at unbundling parking, so you're not obligated to have 2 spaces with your residential unit if you only want 1. So these are some of the things that help. Yes.
Respect your opinion on it. Let me go to the next question. Yes, today I was down at the main post office.
Yes.
I was at the main post office downtown today.
Mm-hmm.
All around the post office, there are extensions of white poles that are making the streets very, very narrow. And obviously, it must be for bikes. I can't imagine it all this, but it's taking up, the streets are already narrow. And when you do all this area for the bikes, it doesn't leave much space to drive in.
Well, these sticks mostly are about what we call Vision Zero. It was a program that our last mayor had, and it carries forward. It's reducing fatalities related to cars running over pedestrians and having accidents. They push the sticks out, so you have to drive all the way around to make a right turn. That's because they don't want your car getting close to that person standing on the corner. So it's an improvement for the pedestrians, and it's also improvements for the bike folks. They are supposed to be temporary. I ask them all the time because those sticks are really ugly and I don't like them. I want to see if we're going to have something that separates, let's put a little concrete in. But they are temporary for right now.
This way? Okay. All right. So I read the article that the gentleman referred to, and I see there's a 10-year difference. But my question is, are there any things you can do in the interim, because it's going to be a living hell in here for 10 years? I mean, between the construction truck and everything else, while we're waiting for this nirvana to come along, it's going to be very problematic to the neighborhood. And so one of the things you mentioned earlier was converting First Avenue back into a street that people don't want to drive on, so that they have to go around. Or are there any alternatives like that that could be considered to offset the construction traffic and the increased cars in the interim? Or are there any other ways to go at funding to get the, right now we got the cart before the horse. We really need to get the horse in place, and then build up to it. And we run a loss on everything else here. So, right. Are there any options?
Well, let me tell you the reality of what the city is facing right now. Now, I'm going to refer to a project down by DU because I got some Elevate Denver funding from a general obligation bond for a project that was costed out at 8.4 million. We won that. We got the 8.4 million to build the things that we need. Last year, when they went out to bid out the work, the best bid was 23 million. And that's every project in the city. Concrete is more expensive, labor is limited, everything is costing more than it needs to, and RTD is not being run correctly. These are all problems that we're going to have to deal with through the next few years. And I talked with our Denver Moves Cherry Creek folks, and I said, the first building that opens up at Cherry Creek West is going to need better transit than what we have today, and you have to commit to it. And what we did get from the city was a commitment to provide enhanced transit. Enhanced transit means that they are at least 15 minutes in frequency through the whole area. And so by 2027 or 2028, they're promising enhanced transit, and I'm going to still be around, and I'm going to hover, and I'm good friends with the head of Dottie. So I'm going to tell you, we're going to get that transit if we can get RTD fixed first.
One thing I also want to remind people is that, and we've mentioned that at this a couple of meetings, that the construction traffic issues should be brought to our attention. To the extent that there are new buildings being constructed, those developers and general contractors have got to file a plan about where the workers are going to park. It doesn't include where they're going to drive with the trucks that are doing the excavation, although we have had luck working just one-on-one between our committees and the developers to ask them to please use a different route. So where there are obvious ways to improve this, and Linda and I met with the developers of Magnetic Capital that are doing the second in Adams, and we walked through where they were going to take their trucks, because it's happening at the same time that Mill Creek Residential is putting their building on Cook. And they actually changed their direction, because they have to lay all this out when they price the trucking for the excavation work. They actually changed that so that it would be less impactful on the residential part of the neighborhood, and required them to use First more. Now, it isn't always the case that we can get a developer to say, oh, that's cool, we can do that. We can make that work. But if there are really obvious things, send us an email. We try to work on these. And if we know, for example, that a lot of the workers that are going down to project A are really parking in front of your house and then taking, somebody picking them up, we could call those contractors. And some of these guys they have issues, right? I mean, the smaller projects, this does not apply to them. So when they're building the fourplex on your block or a duplex, and the worker that carries all of the stuff on their van are coming to work, they have trouble too. And I know one of my neighbors is here. We both just underwent some renovations. It's hard to get people to work on your own home with some of this. So that's why we were trying to get more flex passes, for example. That's why we try to make sure people understand that, we all share these issues. The workers share the issues, and we share these issues. But sometimes, just sometimes, we can get some solutions for those. And so for the bigger project, when we're talking about construction worker problems, when we work with Cherry Creek West, and remember, there will be an update on that project before the end of the evening. But we will make sure we understand where they are going to park the workers, how they're going to get workers here, how they're going to run their excavation trucks, and we'll have an eye on it. And we have Stuart that is going to be having an eye on how we can, before they reach a certificate of occupancy, how we can better the transit options for the people that will live and work in those buildings that are being constructed. So we're going to try to wrap up with Stuart because it's almost 8 and then we'll have a few more minutes. But I have one more question.
And I wanted to say something.
Okay, and then Stuart's going to,
okay.
well, 2 more quick
Two
questions.
more. Okay.
So I'm going to go here and then I'm going to come to you, Chuck.
Stuart, you opened the evening by stating that the double lane on 8th Ave really facilitated improvement in Cherry Creek. Is there or was there any consideration on the Cherry Creek West project to access more turn lanes where currently it's flat out dangerous heading south on University, trying to take the left on Cherry Creek Drive?
Yes.
And now you're creating 1,200 units that will also mandate another left-hand turn?
Mm-hmm. Any
eminent domain aspects or anything going on? I don't want to give this back to Lou. 3 more.
Well, let me, the intersection is going to get rebuilt and those developers are going to pay for rebuilding First and University. And then the turn in to the mall and the turn in to Cherry Creek Drive South, those have to be improved. They're not functioning right now. And the city has no money to fix it. We've got a lot of things on the books, but Cherry Creek hasn't for the past several years been a top recipient of city funding because it's going to other locations and not here. Cherry Creek has been starved with investment in infrastructure. They're relying a lot on these developers to do things. And I'm going to answer this gentleman's question just real quick. The best thing you have with Cherry Creek West is Lou, because Lou is in conversation with what they promised to do. She writes down and she writes it as a legal document and she's going to talk about it, I know, later tonight, but you don't see her in action. She knows what to ask for. She understands what they have to do and she's going to make them do it. I can try, but Lou can certainly make it happen. And we need more Lou's to be able to help this.
Quick update on where Lou is on a couple of these things. I do want to remind everybody that we are also in the middle of Vision Zero for Denver, which is a top priority. Cherry Creek is identified as one of the best priority pedestrian priority zones. So when you see those poles and cones, it's because that intersection does not prioritize pedestrian safety. So Vision Zero, which if you start putting all the hierarchy of what's important, if you ask most people in the city, that is number 1, protecting people from accidents. And so some of that is going to come into how intersections are going to be required to be redesigned and reconstructed. Chuck, last question.
Quick, Stuart, I applaud you for dealing with these rather complex issues. Not easy solutions. My question is really more personal in nature and applies to bullet number 4. And I guess I'm feeling like one of the entitled, but I have a home here. I've had it for 12 years. I've always been able to get a permit for my vehicle, which is licensed in Colorado. And this year I'm rejected because I don't have a Colorado driver's license. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has a home here that lives elsewhere and is in that same predicament. What is the purpose behind this, I guess, administrative change?
I think Lou could probably address that better because she's been involved in some of those discussions.
For those of us, Annette included, working on the parking, Stuart is not involved. Because if we had Stuart as a part of our conversation in that, we might be getting a lot more cred, so to speak. But I will speak to that right after we finalize Stuart's obligations to us. And I will tell everybody that the more I think there was a really good question about how can we help, you know, people understand more about these issues because they're complicated. So simple math and simple opinion letters, and frankly, some of the articles that had misinformation, bottom line, is that people misunderstand and they get planted in their head that this is just going to be the worst thing that has ever happened. These issues are complicated. And, you know, you wouldn't go to your dentist to have brain surgery, right? These things require sophisticated, educated transit expertise. So if people don't have that expertise, don't necessarily believe what you're hearing. And for those of you who might have watched Ludi, I mean, there are some people, even Councilman Cashman, who said, I'm not buying that it's only going to be 5%, even though there are studies. But it is complicated. It's complicated for those of us who are trying to learn about this. And I'm just so thankful that we have Stuart who will answer questions. If you have ongoing questions about transit, and as we get further into Cherry Creek West, we'll get him back because he's working on that. Let us know, because I have been so privileged to get to know Stuart well and to understand the level of his expertise. So if you have questions, get them to us. We'll ask Stuart. He'll come back as long as you help me give him a big round of applause and thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. I got to preach for a little bit.
Thank you, Stuart, so very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks again. Thanks again. Okay, we will bring this home with an update on everyone's favorite topic, topic of the hour, Cherry Creek West. It has been working its way through the system. And by that, I mean that 2 weeks ago, it went to Planning Board. Planning Board is the formal entity of members who get a full summary from the planner, who's with Denver Planning, about the project. The developer is there, and we submitted a letter on behalf of the Cherry Creek Steering Committee that included the following registered neighborhood organizations that are members of the steering committee, and I chair the steering committee, but it's Cherry Creek North, Cherry Creek East, Country Club, Historic Neighborhood Association, Hilltop Neighborhood Association. We all joined in a letter authored on behalf of those entities through the Cherry Creek Steering Committee to object to the zoning that was proposed by Cherry Creek West for the following reason. And our zoning committee, the members are here, Babs and Kevin and Linda and I, have gone through the hundreds of pages of documents that comprise their zoning application and found fairly quickly that what had been presented to the neighborhood in terms of 7 buildings at an average of 10.5 stories, that the actual zoning application, the PUD document that sets the zoning, had said unlimited number of buildings, 12 stories with increased height for affordable housing. And we objected. We said that's not what we were told. We had also been meeting with this developer over the last 2.5 years to request that the developer limit some of the uses that would be most impactful from a transit traffic issue. And quick footnote, the least amount of traffic is created by residential uses, period. Then you get to higher levels of traffic, general office, less than retail, less than restaurant, way less than grocery stores, run in and out, get your milk, leave, in, out all day, and medical office. If you have, I mean, those of you who go to 100 Cook, you understand, you go there, you go in for 20 minutes, you get your shot, you pick up your, you know, your prescriptions and you leave. In, out all day. And that's a 5-story building with however many doctors and PAs that you go to see, in, out all day. So think of these uses as a traffic generation issue. And what we asked was that there be more housing, less traffic. We need affordable housing. Teachers who work in this building cannot afford to live in this neighborhood, all right? They will when we get some of that affordable housing. We're not talking public housing. We're talking affordable housing, and there's not a ton of it. It's not using CHAFA funds, LIHTC, which is low-income housing tax credit. It is a much more developer-funded program. So, but we are going to get some of those units. So again, more housing, least traffic. We asked the developer to limit the use of medical office, and that wasn't anywhere in the document, so we objected. So we went to planning board. I spoke on behalf of all of us in objecting to it moving through the system and on toward city council approval. And I was thanked for my 6 minutes. Cherry Creek East ceded their time to me. And then they all voted 100% in favor. So it moved then the following week to LUTI, Land Use, Transportation, and Infrastructure Committee of Council. We submitted our objection similarly as part of that package that also said we've been working on a developer and community benefit agreement that would give this neighborhood some assurances on those objection points. And it had stalled, our negotiation had kind of stalled. So we took that to LUTI. Councilman Cashman said he voted against it. Councilwoman Sawyer said, I'm going to vote for it, but I want you to get that agreement done with my neighborhoods before you bring it to council. So these are all public meetings. I can send you all the links. You can watch them. You can go to our website where we will have the objection letter that you can take a look at. All this is to say that currently where we are in this project is it passed out of LUTI, just like it not unanimously like it did out of planning board, but it passed. And it is headed to city council on September 23rd. So Councilwoman Sawyer was very clear that she wanted this agreement in place and before it came to council. And the developers have come back to us and said, okay, let's try to sit down and work this out. We are having really good conversations now. We've been back and forth with drafts of this document. We're probably on the 6th iteration of back and forth right now. But you have to remember our community stakeholder group involves not just Cherry Creek North, Cherry Creek East, Country Club, Hilltop, neighbors to the north, neighbors to the south. They all have a place at the steering committee. So we try to keep everybody informed, like we try to keep you informed, because not all neighborhoods have quarterly meetings with their residents. We're lucky because we have so many of you that care enough to come and that want these meetings. But we're watching out for all of those. So our stakeholder group is active. We are at the table. The developer stakeholder group involves way more people, way more issues. It involves the Buell Foundation as their only asset. This will be a sublease. That's why there can be no condominiums there, because they don't have anything but a leasehold to develop on. So they don't have fee simple interest because you can't buy anything. You can rent a place, but they don't have a fee interest to sell. And it's a 99-year ground lease sublease. So you have Buell Foundation. You have Taubman, because this is a sublease, because right now it's Taubman. Then you have the investors, right? I know many of you probably have investments in real estate, right? You understand that there's a risk profile for the investor group. Then you have the lenders, who say, I'm not going to give you $1 to build this thing until you have enough investor equity in the table. So look at their stakeholders that they have to answer to. And then look back 5 years and say, hey, should we invest in an office building? That sounds like a great idea. Let's invest in Republic Plaza downtown, AAA, biggest rents downtown. 5 years ago, you said, yeah, I'll do that deal. Here's a check. 5 years later, office market is dead. Post-COVID, everybody is struggling, and everybody knows that. What did that do? It woke all of us up to the fact that things may change in a way that we don't necessarily see. And so what happens? The risk analysis goes up. So we're having a lot of, well, what if Denver is overbuilt? We can't build housing. What if we can't find anybody to finish the office buildings? What if the city comes back and says, oh no, we now want you to do 20 stories and a lot more affordable housing? What if? And our job in negotiating this community benefit agreement is to get the best deal that we can for the neighbors, to be good partners with this developer, understanding they have risks. Everybody puts a shovel in the ground right now in Cherry Creek and is producing, bringing that great restaurant to you. They have risk. And that's why I tell everybody, you need to be aware of that right now. It's more important than ever for you to buy your presence at those brick and mortar stores, because those rents are high. And if you buy everything on Amazon, or you look at the catalog, you walk into Nordstrom, but you buy it online, they're not getting revenue here. And we need to support our businesses, because without them, the risk goes up and they go away. So we all are a part of this bigger community in making Cherry Creek continue to be the jewel that it is, with great residential opportunities, as well as workout, design. This is now the new design center. It's even doing better than, we just got Ann Sachs in. I mean, this is a jewel in our city, but it comes with a lot of these issues right now. And as the largest developer, East West is having to manage all of those concerns from the developer stakeholder. So I am fortunate that I am able to bring, 38 years of legal experience in that world to help negotiate this on behalf of our stakeholder group, not as a lawyer, but as somebody who understands this, and as the head of our zoning committee, and as the chair of the steering committee, and for another couple of months, president of CCNNA. But we will get there. They are using a really competent attorney at Otten Johnson, who I've worked with for many, many years. The developer, Babs and Mike, know East West very well, because they live down in their riverfront project. They're a responsible and good developer, but they do have a lot of stakeholders and a lot of people. What if? So understand that right now, where we are is at a point where I am very optimistic that we will reach a community benefit agreement that will do a number of really important things, and a lot of other things that are, really good things for us, but more window dressing kind of things. Most important of which, it will cap the heights. It will cap the number of buildings. It will make sure that what you all have looked at for the last 2 years is what they build. It will deal with that use, so they will agree not to do that use, even though some of their investors are like, well, what's that? The only thing is that we've got all these old people that need healthcare. Let's put an office building that does healthcare. And we're saying, no, not unless there's such a change that, and we're talking over build out periods, right? So some of these provisions will burn off. Some of the provisions that are covenants running with the land will last for a long time. But all of these provisions will last until we get this thing built out And we know what's going to be there. Why? Because there are already doors, windows, and window coverings that we're looking at, right? So we're going to have some outs, some risk analysis where if they absolutely cannot do anything with it, the worst case scenario is they have to file for rezoning on a project they already rezoned. What does that mean? We're all back at the table. New ball game. They put so much money into this. They have so many consultants, great lawyers, great architects, planners, that's really, I see it as a very low risk for us that we have to go through this again. But we have to do the right thing now. We have to make sure that we get these commitments in writing from the developer. And there'll be other things like we want to make sure that if these office buildings that go up, these are on our gateway to our community. So no bicycles, no, sporting equipment on the balconies, please. Make sure that we don't have 15 different colors facing the street on window coverings. I mean, that's the window dressing stuff, right? That's the stuff you think about if you've been in the development world for a long time. And anybody that wants to drive out to Casa Bonita on Colfax, take a look at some of those buildings and look at the junk that is all over those patios and balconies and things that, frankly, we want to make sure the developer manages so that we have a really clean project. We want all that open space. We want lots of landscaping, but the most important pieces relate to use. Why? Because it drives traffic. So you will all see this agreement. It will come out to all of you. When it is done, we are asking the community to support our board and our zoning committee, and we will be taking this up. But that is our commitment to you. Our board has already voted on a list of these things that are very important to get into this agreement. We're going to have to dissect it a little more. Suffice it to say, there's been a lot of time spent in this process, but it goes to finding those benefits to make sure that we are able to welcome this developer with an understanding of what they're going to build, how they're going to build it, and how they're going to help us manage that traffic issue. And we'll have ongoing meetings with them and ongoing opportunities as this thing comes out of the ground. Now, I know that was a lot of diatribe. I apologize for that, but I wanted to be really clear about where we are because this is moving very fast. And I know there will be people out there, Matt, who don't want this project no matter what we say. And it is fine for you to lodge your objections at City Council. But where we are going as an organization is to really work on this to guarantee to you all that we will confirm to the extent that we can that those zoning documents, which don't say some of this thing, those voids are fixed in this development community benefit agreement. And that community benefit is you. It's for our benefit. So we have assurance. And so I think that's probably gives you a sense in terms of timing. We plan to get this done before we have another general residence meeting. Why? Because it's going to City Council in September. And per Councilwoman Sawyer's mandate, we're going to get this thing done so that before we go to council, we have a signed agreement. We will be taking this up finally with our board, probably on a special meeting to make sure that we go through it in detail. I am happy once it's out there to go through it with you. It will be on our website. It will be recorded against the property. And some of the provisions are a little, legalese, but if anybody wants to see what we've agreed to, it will be there. I will also be putting together a memo that will go with that for our neighborhoods to understand what we are the primary points of this agreement that people will care about, so that you don't have to read it and try to figure out what's this. Because most people who look at those zoning documents, they say, I don't even know what to look at. I've got a PUD document. I've got a 150-page development agreement. I've got a transportation infrastructure plan. I've got an infrastructure master plan, and all those together, those hundreds and hundreds of pages, comprise the developer zoning documents. Now, they've had to negotiate those over the last several years. It's not easy being a developer these days. We're lucky to have a good one that is listening to us. And with that, we're almost out of time, but if anybody has a question, I'm happy to answer it. Yep. Been my pleasure. And I'm not doing it alone. I got we have a really good team here, and people care. And we want you to know that even though we may not get everything we want, we got your back on the main points. And I'm glad I have this experience that I can bring. I'm also glad that I'm going to step down as your president in a couple of months. But this will be done first, I promise. And with that, we'll bring this meeting to a close. Thank you all for caring. We will provide further updates. If you have questions, most of you know you can send emails to me, and I try to answer all of them personally. Thank you. Good night. See if I can turn this off and see if I can just get this. Hi, thank you so much. I'm trying to turn this. Okay.